Then on Sports Central, we go over our next team prediction of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Auburn Tigers, the team that went 5-7 overall in the 2022 season. Definitely a bit of a disappointing season for this team, but it is the start of a new era in Auburn. Hugh Freeze is the new head coach. Will he return this team to contention anytime soon, and how will this team be in 2023? We'll be talking about it here today. We'll be analyzing this team and predict their schedule game by game in this video. Let's get started with a quick recap of 2022. Once again, the record was 5-7, and this team did show some promise at the beginning of the season. Went 3-1 through September, which is not bad. And of course, they did have that ugly loss to Penn State, 41-12, but I mean, had a nice win against a good Missouri team who was decent last year, 17-14, but turns out that would be the last win until mid-November when this team would beat Texas A&M. So you lost 5 games in a row there in the middle of the season. Obviously brutal to lose 5 games in a row like that if you want to be a contender. But you beat Texas A&M 13-10, beat Western Kentucky 41-17, and then lost Alabama to finish out the season 49-27. So definitely disappointing season for this team, and honestly, considering a couple of those close losses that this team did take last season, this team definitely could have been in a bowl game last year. Just didn't turn out that way in the end. But looking forward to 2023 now, your Ross preview heading into the season. Peyton Thorne is coming in from Michigan State. That is obviously the big storyline of the offseason for this team. Peyton Thorne was a good quarterback at Michigan State, led them to a really successful 2021 season. 2022 wasn't quite as good, but I mean, he's still a talented quarterback, and he is, I mean, this quarterback situation is definitely going to be much better than it was last season. I can guarantee that much. TJ Finley is transferring out. Robbie Ashford is coming back. So you do have him, who's likely going to be the backup to Peyton Thorne. So at least you got your primary starter from last season back for some depth. But I mean, Robbie Ashford, when he played, he was not great. 1,600 yards, 7 touchdowns, 7 picks, and a 49% completion rate. Those are not very good stats, and really the quarterback situation was just kind of a mess. But I will say this about Robbie Ashford. He was a really good rusher. He rushed for over 700 yards and 7 touchdowns, but of course his passing game, not so good. And even if you look at TJ Finley, he had 400 yards with a touchdown, 4 picks. He wasn't that good when he played either, so it really didn't matter much in the end. But the backfield was pretty good. Tank Bigsby is gone, your top running back from last season, who had nearly 1,200 yards of offense, 10 touchdowns. So you do lose him, which is going to be, he's a tough guy to replace, but at least you got Jarquez Hunter coming back, who also was impressive last season, nearly 900 yards and 9 touchdowns. So it's not going to be, I mean, you're not going to have that 1-2 punch of Bigsby and Hunter like you did last season, but maybe you do add some depth there, and maybe a guy steps up, and you can see that again in 2023. But as far as it goes for now, you can definitely expect Jarquez Hunter to be the top back for this team. As for the receiving core, Javarius Johnson coming back, Coy Moore's coming back. So your top 2 in the receiving core both coming back, but neither of them really were terribly impressive statistically. Johnson had just over 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then Jackson, of course, the second, or no, Moore was your second receiver who just had over 300 yards. Shedrick Jackson was your third, who is gone. Last season, just over 200 yards and no touchdowns. So the receiving core didn't really have any big standouts last year, but you can expect Javarius Johnson to probably have a bigger impact in 2023, that's for sure. You lose 1 on the O-line, 3 on the D-line, 1 linebacker, and really none in the secondary. You really don't lose any key players in the secondary, which is a great thing. So defensively, there's a lot of potential here. The D-line does have to replace a couple of key players for sure, so that is something to keep in mind. But otherwise, I see a lot of potential in this team. I like Peyton Thorne a lot. Michigan State really played well there. He's a quarterback with tremendous potential. I think with Auburn, it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to the SEC conference. That's all around just brutal, both sides of the ball, especially defensively. But of course, Peyton Thorne did play against some really good defenses in the Big Ten too. So it's going to be interesting, but I definitely think he's a quarterback that is absolutely a step up from what this team had last season. So that's definitely promising, I do think, for this team. And will this team return to contention anytime soon? Hugh Freeze, first season for him with Auburn. I do think that he brings He's obviously got some great experience, and I do think that Auburn can return to contention in the near future. Obviously, Brian Harsin definitely disappointed with his time at Auburn. Really, I mean, last season 5-7, the year before that 6-7. I mean, this team hasn't gotten 10 wins since 2017. So it's been a while since this team has been a big contender. I mean, even in 2019, they weren't bad, got up to 9 wins. But I think this team could be a contender in the conference in the near future. There's the talent here for this team to do that. And the recruiting isn't terrible either. So it's very much within possibility. And I think having a new head coach definitely brings a new optimism, which is always good. But that said, looking at the transfer portal and recruiting now. So Peyton Thorne, obviously mentioned him coming in from Michigan State. Zach Calzada, quarterback, is off to Incarnate Word next. He was, I believe he came in from Texas A&M, really didn't play at all, so it just makes sense for him to be off to another school, and he's off to Incarnate Word next. TJ Finley's off to Texas State, and then Brian Battle, you got him coming in from South Florida. Maybe he has an immediate impact. He's listed as the 3rd running back on this team. So we'll see what he can do in 2023. Maybe he surprises a bit. Rivaldo Fairweather's coming in from FIU, tight end. Expect him to have immediate impact for sure. Jair Shorter, receivers coming in from North Texas. This team is bringing in 2 key receivers here from the transfer portal in Shorter, and then Shane Hooks coming in from Jackson State. So your 3 key receivers, it looks like, for 2023 should be Hooks, Shorter, and then Javarius Johnson. Corey Moore was a second wideout, or was the second wideout on this team last season. He's listed as a wide receiver 2 for this team. Looking forward to 2023. And you also get Cale Burton coming in, a receiver who is coming in from Ohio State, so keep an eye on him as well. Avery Jones, offensive lineman, he's coming in from East Carolina. You also got Dylan Wade coming in from Tulsa. Gunnar Britton's coming in from Western Kentucky. So the offensive line adds multiple key players as well, which is needed. Justin Rogers, defensive lineman's coming in from Kentucky. You also bring in Messiah Nasili Kite from Maryland. All these guys could be key players in 2023 for sure. Jalen McLeod is coming in from App State. And then Austin Keys and Larry Nixon III, both linebackers also coming in. And all 3 of these linebackers here with McLeod, and then of course Keys and Nixon, all 3 of these guys could be starters for sure in 2023. Recruiting wise, not bad. 18th in the country, 8th in the SEC. Got 10 4-stars coming in, and then 11 3-stars. So recruiting is overall pretty good for first-year head coach Hugh Freeze. Obviously, the SEC, a stacked conference with recruiting. You're 18th. You're in the top 20 in the country, but you're still 8th in the conference, which is insane. But I do have this team at an 8 out of 10 on the future forecast meter. Last couple of years have been definitely disappointing for this team, so I do want to go a bit conservative in the case this team still disappoints. I mean, you could argue even the past 3 years have been a bit disappointing, but I do think for the future, Auburn's definitely a team that could be a contender. I mean, this team has got the talent and the resources to do that. I know that it didn't work out the way this team was hoping with Brian Harsin, but Hugh Freeze, I mean, at Liberty, he was an excellent coach and really led Liberty to some great success. So I do think that that can definitely transform to Auburn, and so we'll see what happens there. But future is bright for this team, and I especially think the transfer portal has been great for this team. A lot of key players coming in from the transfer portal that absolutely could have immediate impacts in 2023. But with that, let's take a look at the schedule as we look forward to 2023. So you got UMass in week 1, and then Cal on the road week 2. Definitely an interesting matchup there, going on the road to Cal. Pac-12 team to have a matchup there. And then you got Samford week 3, Texas A&M on the road week 4, and then Georgia at home. Tough matchup there in week 5, but I mean, that's a huge opportunity there. Taking on Georgia at home, week 5, Georgia, back-to-back champs. And you got a chance for what could be just a massive win there. And we have seen Auburn upset Georgia in the past, so it is a possibility, even though it's going to be obviously brutal. LSU on the road then on the 14th of October. Then you got Ole Miss coming to town, Mississippi State as well, and then Vanderbilt on the road. You got Arkansas on the road, New Mexico State at home, and then Alabama, Iron Bowl at home this season in Auburn. So, I mean, it's a challenging schedule. You got to play Georgia, you got to play LSU on the road, got to play Alabama. I mean, even Arkansas on the road could be tough. Texas A&M on the road could be tough as well. So, I mean, it's a tough schedule. It is a good thing that you got 3 of course, out of your 3 toughest matchups, Georgia, LSU, and Alabama. 2 of those 3 are at home. which is definitely a good thing, but it's still a very tough schedule. But looking at September here, UMass, you beat them easily. Cal on the road. I do think this one ends up being a close matchup just because obviously this team is going to be still a bit inexperienced with each other. This is a very different team here in 2023 with the transfers and everything. It's going to be a good team, but I mean, this is just a whole bunch of players that really haven't played with each other much. Once again, this team is very much different. So I do think this Cal matchup ends up being a bit closer than expected there in week 2, but you definitely get it done. I'd be stunned if you lost that matchup. Sanford, easy win, and then Texas A&M on the road. It's a winnable matchup. I think Texas A&M next season does improve. They definitely disappointed in 2022. You could argue that they disappointed the most out of any team in the country last season. In fact, I'd argue that. But I do think Texas A&M is going to be better in 2023. Tough matchup there on the road. I'm going to take the Aggies there. So you're 3-1 heading into the second month of action. Georgia, this is just a brutal matchup here. And I mean, you got them at home. It's a good opportunity to play just a fantastic team in Georgia. But I just think that it's going to be too tough a matchup. You lose that one, and you also lose to LSU after your bye on the road. LSU, just a brutal place to play. I think the Tigers a big national contender in 2023, so I'm going to take LSU there. So you're 5-3 heading into the Ole Miss matchup. I do think you beat Ole Miss in a close one. Honestly, that'd be a great win there as well. Ole Miss next season should be a decent 7-9 win team, so you get a nice win there. And then you beat Mississippi State easily. I expect them to fall off quite a bit. So that puts you at 5-3 heading into November. Vanderbilt on the road, you take care of them, no problem. Arkansas on the road. Tough matchup here. I think Arkansas next season could be a solid 7-9 win team. Yeah, I'd say they're going to be a tough team to beat on the road there. I'm going to favor the Razorbacks, but it is definitely a winnable matchup there, and you could definitely get up to 8 wins with a win there against Arkansas. And then New Mexico State, you beat them easily, and then Alabama at home. This is a huge opportunity here for Auburn. I honestly was close to picking Auburn to beat Alabama there. But I do think the Crimson Tide at that point in the season should be playing some pretty good ball. I do think Alabama's a team that is very beatable in the first half of the season. They've got some inexperience in some questionable areas for sure. But I do think Alabama, a talented enough team, they get it done against Auburn. But that is a game to keep an eye on. That is a potential trap game there for Alabama. We've seen Auburn have some incredible wins over the Crimson Tide in years past. So it's a possibility. Auburn's usually competitive against Alabama, but I do want to favor the Crimson Tide there in the end. So you're 7-5 next season, considering the brutal schedule. First-year head coach, if you can get up to 7 wins, win a bowl game, get 8 wins next season, I'd say that's a pretty good season for this team. Ceiling, I'm going to say 10-2, so that's in the case that this team surprises a bit, but I definitely don't see this team being any better than 10-2. I mean, you consider some of the tough matchups, Georgia, LSU, and Alabama. If you went 10-2, that would mean that you probably lose to 2 of Georgia, LSU, and Alabama, and you'd win every other game. So that'd be pretty brutal to do in a first-year head coach situation. So I do think 7-5 for the prediction. Floor is 5-7. That's the worst possible record you could have. So that has you missing bowl eligibility. But I'm pretty confident this team gets back to a bowl in 2023. I mean, yeah, this team is very much different than 2022, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I do think this team has got plenty of talent. I mean, this is a talented team that very well could get to a pretty decent bowl game. So I'll say this again, 7-5. If you can get up to 7 wins, win a nice bowl game, I'd say that's a successful season and a step in the right direction for this team. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Auburn. It's definitely an interesting team, and I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.